On the wide plains of Plataea, the Greek forces found themselves confronted by a Persian army 100,000 men strong. Before twilight fell, the most feared imperial power of the ancient world was going to lose forever its ability to threaten Greece. This account reveals how mourning turned into relentless vengeance, and how, guided by the memory of the dead at Thermopylae, Greek spears forged victory. A decade after the sacrifice of Leonidas and his 300 Spartans, their brothers in arms were going to demand a bloody tribute whose cries would echo through the ages. The fate of Western civilization now depended only on the tip of a bronze spear. By the end of this analysis, you will grasp the mechanisms by which the Greeks transformed an expected defeat into an unexpected triumph, the reason the course of the Aesopos was clogged by Persian corpses, and how a single death in battle altered the course of history. You will discover the tactical error that doomed 100,000 Persian soldiers, the night maneuver that nearly tore the Greek alliance apart, and the death of one man that triggered the greatest massacre in military antiquity. However, the Persian scouts had overlooked a crucial detail. Visualize the situation in August 479 BCE. The morning light reveals a panorama that, logically, should have guaranteed a Persian triumph. The Greek army, scattered over kilometers of dusty plains, thirsty and exhausted, faces the greatest invasion force ever assembled. Mardonius, the general appointed by King Xerxes, believes he sees an easy prey. The Greek formations seem broken. Their legendary discipline collapsed. Success seems inevitable. And then the unthinkable happens. What seemed impossible becomes inevitable. In the space of 6 hours, this immense Persian army is not only defeated, but totally annihilated. From that day on, no Persian sovereign will ever again attempt to cross the borders of Europe. At the center of this reversal stands Pausanias, regent of Sparta, carrying on his shoulders the legacy of his cousin Leonidas' sacrifice. Today, he commands not only the Spartans, but also the largest Greek coalition ever assembled. The answer to the events of Thermopylae is imminent. However, Pausanias is faced with 3 riddles likely to lead to disaster. Why did Mardonius abandon his impregnable position? What secret message pushed the Spartan commander to risk everything during a night march? And by what miracle could disorganized Greek troops transform chaos into victory? To understand the magnitude of this massacre, it is necessary to return to the origins of the conflict. Let us return to 479 BCE, at the moment when Greece's darkest hour preceded its triumph. Leonidas and his 300 men lay lifeless at the gates of Thermopylae. Their death had bought a respite, but at an exorbitant price. Now Xerxes' war machine surges south inexorably. Athens is prey to flames. The Acropolis, emblem of Greek achievement, is reduced to a heap of smoldering ash. The citizens, refugees on the surrounding islands, watch helplessly as their city dies beyond the waves. It is in this context that Pausanias' genius is revealed. He does not merely share Leonidas' blood, he assumes its burden. As regent for the young son of the dead king, he embodies the hope of vengeance for all Greece. But vengeance requires allies, and animosity among Greeks is matched only by their hatred for the Persians. Let us examine the commanders present. Pausanias, the avenger despite himself, commands the entirety of the Spartan forces without ever having sought this role. Aristides, nicknamed the Just, leads 8,000 Athenians thirsty for revenge, their city destroyed, and their people demanding Persian blood. Facing them stands Mardonius, the hammer of Xerxes, the king's cousin, personally chosen to complete the work begun at Thermopylae. What distinguishes Plataea from all previous conflicts is unity. For the first time in Hellenic history, age-old enemies stand together, Spartans and Athenians. Corinthians and Megarians stand side by side. 40,000 hoplites from 24 city-states, united by a shared rage and a common objective. Consider the scope of this fact. These city-states have waged war for centuries. Their ancestors have slaughtered one another. Their gods demand different rights. Yet they lock their shields together because the only alternative is slavery. This is not simply a military alliance, but a miraculous phenomenon. Beyond unity, the Greeks field the most formidable heavy infantry in the ancient world. Each hoplite wears bronze armor weighing 50 pounds. Their shields overlap to form the dreaded phalanx, and their 12-foot spears, nearly 4 meters, outclass the entire Persian arsenal. Individually, one Greek is worth 5 Persian soldiers. However, Mardonius has 25 men for every Greek. The events that followed defied 10 millennia of military logic. Mardonius commands not only Persians, but nations subjected to the empire. the immortals in scale armor, the cavalry Indian archers, Egyptian spearmen, Thracian swordsmen. It is a force of 100,000 warriors speaking 50 languages, armed by the riches of 3 continents. The theater of operations lies 9,000 south of Thebes, where the Asopos River crosses the dusty plains toward Mount Cithaeron. Geography dictates destiny. The Greeks, needing water, cannot reach the river controlled by Mardonius, whose cavalry dominates the plain. Neither side can attack without exposing itself to a critical disadvantage. For 11 days, the armies watch, test, and wait. But the Greeks possess an advantage Mardonius did not foresee. They defend their land. Each man sees the smoke of burned cities. Each Spartan remembers Thermopylae. Each Athenian feels the taste of ash carried by the south wind. Then intelligence arrives that changes everything. A secret message will transform the Greek disadvantage into a debate with the Persian. Before that, the armies must position themselves for the decisive day. How do you confront an empire that controls half the known world? Dawn rises over Plataea. Mardonius contemplates his supreme weapon, overwhelming numerical superiority. 100,000 men cover the plain like a swarm of locusts. His Persian guard alone outnumbers the entire Spartan contingent. Yet numbers reveal only part of the truth. Analyzing his forces, the core of the Greek army is made up of 10,000 Spartans. They are not the 300 of Thermopylae, but a whole army honoring their memory at every moment. They are led by veterans trained at Leonidas' side, waiting for this moment for 10 years. Beside them march 8,000 Athenians under Aristides, the destruction of their city etched into their minds. The other 22,000 come from all across Greece, Corinthians seeking glory, Megarians proving their courage, Plataeans defending their home. Here is where Greek discipline becomes the Persians' nightmare. Each hoplite is trained from the age of 7. Their helmet limits vision, but maximizes protection. Their bronze cuirass deflects arrows. The famous round shield, the hoplon, does not protect only its bearer. In formation, it covers the soldier to the left. Individual glory fades before the cohesion of the formation. The Persians, for their part, have their own strengths. Mardonius commands the empire's elite. 10,000 immortals, whose ranks are constantly replenished. 1,000 cavalrymen, the best in the world, armed with composite bows, whose range exceeds that of Greek javelins, and 7,000 infantrymen bringing specialized skills refined over generations. One detail still intrigues historians. Why choose Plataea? For Mardonius, the choice is clear. The vast plains favor his cavalry. But Pausanias deliberately leads his troops onto disadvantageous ground, unless he possesses information Mardonius ignores. The answer lies in intelligence. A Theban named Alexander, secretly allied with the Greek cause, attends Mardonius's war council. His reports change the game, but Pausanias cannot act immediately. He must first place his forces where Mardonius expects them. For 11 days, the armies measure each other. Persian cavalry harasses the Greek positions each morning, arrows darkening the sky. The Greeks remain crouched behind their shields, unable to respond. Everything shifts in 10 to 7 minutes when Persian horsemen discover the water source supplying the Greeks behind their line and foul it with horse carcasses and debris. Now 40,000 Greeks risk death by dehydration under the August sun. Mardonius invents strategic dehydration here, forcing the enemy to move or die. Pausanias had been waiting for this opportunity. He needed a pretext to reposition his forces without arousing suspicion. The polluted spring provides the ideal cover. At nightfall on the 11th day, Pausanias orders an unprecedented maneuver, a complete tactical withdrawal under cover of darkness. 40,000 men must march 3 miles in total silence toward new positions with fresh water. However, moving an army at night is a chaotic undertaking. Units lose contact. Orders are misinterpreted. Some refuse to move. Then comes a silence that chills the Persians' blood. The Persian sentries, expecting to hear Greek movement, hear nothing. Is it a flight or a trap? A Spartan captain, Amphiaratus, refuses to obey. He plants his unit standard and declares that no Spartan retreats before the enemy. This is not bravado, but a crisis threatening the entire alliance. If the Spartans do not follow, no one will. The situation becomes even more critical as dawn approaches. The Greek army is stretched over miles of broken ground. The Athenians have reached their position. The center has vanished into the olive groves, but the Spartans remain exposed, arguing with Amphiaratus under the stunned gaze of Persian scouts. Mardonius cannot believe his luck. The disciplined Greek army has dissolved into chaos. This is the moment he has been waiting for. The Greeks are vulnerable, divided, and demoralized. He orders the immediate attack, yet an omen almost stops everything. Greek priests, examining the entrails of sacrificed goats, declare the signs unfavorable for battle. Pausanias lives every commander's nightmare. Enemy cavalry charges while his men remain motionless, forbidden to fight by the gods. Thus, the dawn of August 27th, 479 BCE, nearly marked the end of everything. Persian scouts report to Mardonius that the Greek battle line is broken. The Spartans are isolated on a ridge. The Athenians grouped 3,000 away, and the center has disappeared. After 11 days of perfect discipline, Greek unity collapses. Hear the crash of 20,000 Persian cavalrymen setting in motion. Mardonius sees victory being offered to him by the gods. Despite his general's calls for caution, fearing a trap, the scene defies all logic. The Spartans, barely 11,500 men with their allies, are exposed, a perfect target for archers and cavalry charges. The narrative then takes a brutal turn. Mardonius unleashes his mounted archers. They sweep the plain, their composite bows raining a deadly shower onto Spartan bronze. Observe the Spartan reaction that still haunts historians. They do nothing. They remain perfectly still, shields locked, spears grounded. Men fall, pierced by arrows finding the gaps in bronze. Blood soaks the dust, but they do not move. Pausanias in the front rank, hands raised to the sky, praying as his men die. Imagine the scene through the eyes of a Persian archer. You gallop before the most feared warriors in the world. Your arrows hit, yet the formation does not waver. No Spartan breaks ranks to chase you. It is terrifying, supernatural. From the viewpoint of a hoplite, the arm holding the shield burns. Arrows ricochet like hail. A comrade collapses, throat pierced. You step over his body to fill the gap. You have trained for this since age 7. Today, you will prove you are worthy of Leonidas's sacrifice. Pausanias faces a crisis deeper than arrows. Religious law forbids combat without a favorable omen. The priests scrutinize the sacrifices. The signs remain negative. Persian cavalry charges and withdraws relentlessly, each pass costing Greek lives. How long can discipline hold against death? This is where superior equipment will turn into massacre. But first, the human drama unfolds. Callicrates, the most handsome man in the Greek army, takes an arrow to the lungs. As he dies, he regrets not his life, but dying without having struck a single blow for Greece. Such is Spartan psychology. Death is nothing. Failure is everything. 3,000 away, Aristides faces his own crisis. His 8,000 Athenians see the clouds of dust over the Spartan position and know their allies are under attack, but the bulk of the army blocks their road. To join the allies means a frontal assault against impossible odds. Physics then seems to favor the Greeks. The rising sun behind the Greek lines blinds the Persians. Mardonius must attack half-blind or wait, but momentum is vital. The blood of his men boils. He orders the general advance. It is the moment when empires learn to fear democracy. As 50,000 Persian infantry charge, an extraordinary phenomenon occurs. Without coordinated orders, every dispersed Greek unit begins to move. The Athenians advance toward the Persian center. The missing Greek center emerges from the olive groves. 24 city-states choose the same moment to attack. The true shock is yet to come. At the Spartan position, the priests suddenly declare the omens favorable. Pausanias lowers his hands and roars a single word. Instantly, 11,500 bronze spears drop. The phalanx that seemed broken perfectly reforms and charges. Persian infantry, advancing confidently against a static target, suddenly faces a wall of bronze, launched at full speed. With no time to reorganize and no space to maneuver, the greatest army in the world is about to discover why the Greeks dominate the battlefield. Mardonius plays his last card. Seeing his forces collide with the Spartan charge, he makes a fateful decision. Rather than an organized retreat, he personally leads his guard cavalry straight at Pausanias' position. Killing the Spartan commander would shatter Greek morale. This single moment decided the fate of Western civilization. Two forces rushed toward each other, Spartan bronze discipline and Persian mobile firepower. In 60 seconds, history tips. The collision occurs near the small temple of Demeter. Sacred ground becomes a killing field. Persian cavalry smashes into Spartan spears like waves on cliffs. Horses scream, men die. Bronze meets flesh in an indescribable din. Then Mardonius commits his fatal error.
Seeing his cavalry falter, he dismounts to fight.
A Persian commander's place is in the rear to coordinate, but Mardonius, perhaps remembering Leonidas's death in battle, decides to lead from the front. The Persians did not know that every Spartan had memorized Mardonius's appearance: purple cloak, white horse, golden armor. When he comes down from his horse, a wave of recognition runs through the Greek ranks. The target is identified. The moment Mardonius touches the ground, Greek spears orient toward him like compass needles to iron. Meanwhile, the battle spreads over 3 miles. This is no longer tactics, but destiny. At the Asopos River, Persian infantry makes a catastrophic mistake by crossing the shallow water to exploit their numbers. But the river creates a bottleneck. As thousands of men jam the banks, Greek physics takes over. 12-foot spears outclass 6-foot Persian swords by exactly the distance between life and death. The first Persian ranks die without touching their killers, pushed into a wall of bronze by the weight of their comrades. The river turns red in minutes, bodies forming human dams. At the Spartan position, Mardonius leads 1,000 immortals in a desperate assault. Elite troops fighting with courage, but the phalanx is a grinder of human flesh. Greek rage becomes the Persian nightmare. A Spartan named Enestus spots Mardonius at 20 feet. A wall of dying men separates them. The Persians shield their commander with their bodies. The Spartans advance by walking on corpses, shield against shield. The slaughter reaches an unprecedented intensity. Men stab blindly beneath shields. The wounded cannot fall, held upright by the pressure of the melee. The August heat turns the battlefield into a furnace. This is the instant to remember. As Mardonius rallies his guard, destiny intervenes through a single Spartan spear. History does not name the thrower, but we know the result. The spear strikes Mardonius in the head, piercing his helmet beneath the crest. The Persian commander, Xerxes' cousin, conqueror of Athens, collapses like a puppet whose strings have been cut. In death, Leonidas gains his immortal victory. What follows is not a battle, but a hunt. Persian morale disintegrates. The immortals attempt a fighting retreat, but you do not retreat before an advancing phalanx. Greek spears find backs as easily as chests. Then comes the charge that will echo through the centuries. Pausanias, covered in blood but unscathed, raises Mardonius's golden helmet atop a spear. All combatants see it. The impossible has become inevitable. Elsewhere, Aristides and his Athenians strike the Persian center like an avalanche of bronze. They fight with more fury than discipline. Their city is ash, and they demand payment in blood. The Persian center, composed of subjected troops, has no chance. Median spearmen, Indian archers, Egyptian infantry, all perish en masse. The slaughter has only begun. The Persian retreat becomes a rout. 100,000 men try to flee across a single river. The Greek pursuit is methodical. Hoplites advance in formation, mowing down lives. The Asopos becomes a death trap, where men trip over corpses and drown in bloody water. Persian cavalry, unable to maneuver in the mud, panics. The Greeks carve a path among them, striking without respite. This organized pursuit changes war forever. Previously, battles ended when the enemy fled. Today, for Thermopylae, pity is forgotten. 6 miles from the battlefield lies the camp, a fortified square sheltering supplies and wounded. 40,000 survivors cram inside, believing wooden walls will keep them safe. They are wrong. The Greeks arrive without siege engines and without any intention of starving the defenders. 38,000 hoplites throw themselves against the palisades. What happened in this camp divides historians. Ancient sources fall silent on details, mentioning only a great massacre. Archaeology reveals layers of ash and bones marked by close combat. The camp becomes a charnel house. What follows defies imagination. Taking the camp, the Greeks discover the Persian treasure, Mardonius's fortune, golden cups, silver furniture, weapons inlaid with jewels. Some Persians fight to the death. Others beg in languages unknown to the Greeks. All die, princes and slaves alike. Only those who fled before the Greeks arrived survive. Perhaps 10,000 out of the original 100,000. The death of Mecisteus, the second Persian commander, marks the final phase. Wounded, he fights with desperate courage in the center of the camp before succumbing beneath a dozen spears. His death eliminates all organized resistance. What follows is a systematic butchery, tent by tent. At sunset, silence falls again, broken only by scavengers and groans. The Greeks, exhausted and drenched in blood, begin to realize the scale of their act. In 6 hours, they have destroyed the greatest army ever to invade Europe. Democracy was born in bronze and blood. From this massacre, civilization emerged. One last detail must be counted. At nightfall, they find Mardonius's body. Someone tries to mutilate it to avenge the treatment inflicted on Leonidas's corpse, but Pausanias refuses, declaring that they fought to be better than their enemies. Even in the fury of victory, the Greek ideal survives. Dawn reveals an incomprehensible devastation. The plain of Plataea has become the greatest cemetery in the world. Bodies cover the ground for 3 miles. Greek losses are minimal. 91 Spartans, 52 Athenians. This disparity is explained by the mathematics of collapse. A disciplined force massacres a fleeing crowd at a ratio of 100 to 1. Persia brought 100,000 men. Perhaps 10,000 escaped. It is an extinction, not a victory. The rest lie under the Greek sun. The immediate task is monumental, to manage 90,000 corpses. The Greeks burn their dead with honors, raising tumuli by city-states still visible today. The Persian dead are stripped of their wealth. The amount of booty is staggering. Pausanias orders its collection and equitable distribution. Discipline holds. A tenth is offered to the Oracle of Delphi. Pausanias receives 10 shares of everything. Each soldier receives his share. 70,000 talents of gold and silver are gathered, enough to rebuild the burned cities twice over. But the true prize is freedom. The Greek city-states exult. Athens can be rebuilt. Sparta has avenged Leonidas. The Persian threat evaporates in a day. Pausanias orders the tent of Mardonius preserved and invites the Greek commanders to a symbolic meal, a frugal Spartan menu beside Persian luxury illustrating what they nearly lost. The political consequences are immediate. Hesitant city-states claim their support for the resistance. Thebes, which had welcomed Mardonius, sees its leaders executed. Greece belongs to the Greeks. The same day, the Greek fleet wins at Mycale. 2 victories. One day, the end of Persian expansion. Individual moments pierce the narrative. A Spartan finds his brother's shield, dead at Thermopylae, among the booty. An Athenian finds his household gods stolen. The price of freedom has been paid in blood, but the Greeks pay theirs too. Veterans return changed, united by the trauma of the phalanx. This unity, though temporary, destroyed an empire. Mardonius learned that the Greeks forget nothing. They waited for the perfect moment to strike without restraint. The Greeks swear not to rebuild the temples destroyed by the Persians, leaving them in ruins as a memorial. Some of these remnants remain. Persian influence without Greece is blood and glory. The victory of Plataea saved the very idea of Greece. Democracy, philosophy, and art survived because 40,000 men held firm. Greece's golden age followed. The Parthenon would rise. Socrates would teach. If Mardonius had won, Plato, Aristotle, Roman law, or the scientific method could never have existed. The military lessons of Plataea span the centuries. Discipline beats numbers, unity defeats division, but the human cost remains. 90,000 dead in 6 hours. The dead Persians were also fathers and sons. History reminds us that united resistance can defeat oppression, from the Normandy landings to the streets of Budapest. The price is blood. The alternative is chains. Plataea asks whether civilization is worth killing for. The Greeks answered with bronze, creating our imperfect and magnificent world. Thermopylae was the question. Plataea was the answer. Leonidas asked whether freedom was worth dying for. Pausanias proved it was worth killing for. The ghost of Thermopylae guided the spears at Plataea. The sacrifice of 300 inspired the victory of 40,000. Today, the fields of Plataea are calm. Nothing marks the place where 100,000 men died. But the ideas defended here shape our lives. The battle reminds us that history hangs by little things. Individual choices echo through millennia. From disciplined violence, an ordered society was born. That is Plataea's dark gift, knowing that civilization rests on the will of free peoples to unite when tyranny advances. The impossible became inevitable because ordinary men chose to be extraordinary. From their victory, Western civilization was born. Plataea teaches that some battles are worth fighting and some ideas preserving at the price of our lives. In a world that often forgets its truths, the bronze spears of Plataea still indicate the way.